Everyone, Akin here. Someone asked me to do a tutorial on this track in the comment section of my other video, which is in the description below. So basically I made this track, and a couple of days later saw that Propellerhead was doing a contest for their Europa synth, and basically would make the best use of it. Europa is one of the new synths in Reason 10, and it turns out that I had used it as the main synth for this track, and so I thought, why not tag it with the hashtag we were running and tweet a link to it, and they liked it and they put it on their website as one of their favorite uses, and I really liked the reception that it got, and I liked it because I sort of made it out of boredom, but I didn't think that about 3,000 views later, someone asked me for an explanation of what I did. So anyway, I just thought I'd go through a number of sort of things that I did here. I mean, I made this a couple months ago, so I don't remember every single reason for every single decision that I made, but I'll do my best to walk through some of the things that I think are at least my favorites. So just starting with the intro, that sort of reverse piano thing, it's pretty simple really. So I just opened another track here. So basically what I did was to play back the sequence that I wanted backwards and then reverse it so that it's in the right direction, and then throw a bunch of reverb on it, and then duplicate that and offset the timing so that it makes it a bit more interesting. So I'll just sort of demonstrate that now. Just first unmute this. So I already recorded this. I can just play it quickly. So the progression is right. That's what you want eventually. That's what you want when it's reversed. And so to do that, I just played it backwards, and so that's what this is. Alright, and then I bounce this. Okay, so that's bounced. And then what you want to do is reverse this. So that already sounds cool on its own, but to make it a bit more interesting, I just duplicated that, and then I think I did it twice on the other track, but I'll just do it once just to save time here, and then just throw in some reverb, and I'll just use, I can't remember what exactly I used, but the key thing is you want a lot of reverb, so you want the wetness to be at or near the max, and so that's what this sounds like. Okay, and then to make it even more interesting than this, then what you want to do is offset the original one, and then when you play it, if I do it a bit more, you can hear sort of what I'm trying to go for. So it's that, it almost sounds like you're rewinding a tape basically, and it's just the difference between the two is what makes it a bit more interesting. Anyway, that's that. And then something else that I liked in the beginning here was this guy. You probably won't hear that if you weren't wearing headphones, but it's just very simply a pink noise generator, and most good synths have some sort of pink or white noise generator, and that's what I use for my noise sweeps as well, just with the mod wheel. Well, you can't really hear it now, but yeah, so it's just a pink noise generator, and then what I did was EQ wise, I just turned up, a lot in this really low end range. The stuff that would really, if you had like really good subwoofers, the stuff that would really engage those extremely low frequencies. And I think it just adds, because the rest of the track is quite bright, and so that's just one element that gives it a bit of support underneath. All right, and then there's one more thing. There's one more thing that happens in the intro. If I can find it. Where is it? All right, I know how to find it. All right, so it's this. And that's just a preset. It's called Dark Boom, and I think I stumbled on it when I was looking for something else, and it literally only appears there, and then again at the beginning of the chorus, and then there, and it just accentuates sort of the start of that measure. Back up a bit, but you have to sort of strain to hear it. It's just one of those things that just gives the track a bit more character. All right, now for the fun part, and the part that I think everyone liked, was the main synth, and I'll just talk a bit about what's going on there. So I called it pluck in this track. Just go down. All right, so you may notice by now that I like to have everything in a combinator, and I think that's just one of the most powerful things about Reason is this bad boy right here. In fact, I have a saved preset that I call Combi, and basically I just drag this in before I import any instruments, and underneath here is this line mixer, and what that just helps me do is just very easily layer up to 5 different instruments, and I think the thing that makes the pluck sound really nice is the fact that it's not just one preset, it's about 4, but they all sort of give the final product, they add to the final product in their own unique way. So this is the main thing, I would argue. And again, it's a preset. It's called Pluck Above. And I can expand this, and you can take a screenshot if you like, but I don't think I left all of this unchanged. I think I definitely tinkered with the delay. And one thing I did was to sync it with the tempo, just so that it's rhythmic on its own, as opposed to that just sort of gets lost. But that almost sounds like they're like 3 different people playing at the same time. So that's something interesting that I thought I should add. And yeah, so that's that. And then the second thing is also a preset. I'm still figuring this synth out, so sorry I can't really dive into the details of, like, for example, all that's going on down here. But again, it's just find a preset, and then find a preset that sounds like what you want, and just like start to tinker with things until they fit with the track you have in mind. This is also a preset. So that just, gives it a bit more playfulness. And I called it Playtime because, one, I'm bad at naming tracks, and B, because, well, that's the sort of vibe that I get from that. And then the third thing that's happening is this is a bit darker than the other two. And the thing about layering is, you don't want, like, well, maybe you do want, but you want to sort of add different sounds with different characters. So, like, this is like bright, bright, dark, bright, as far as these four go. Um, but the more of the same you add on, the more of the same you're going to get. So if you're going for something that sounds a bit more complex and unique, then you definitely want to think about sort of what is this contributing that complements the sound, but also sort of adds something new, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, so that's what this is. And it's another preset. In fact, I think it's the same as the first one, but just I played with the filters so that it takes out a lot of those higher harmonics. And the last thing, which I think is the most interesting, it's the most subtle, but I find it the most interesting because it just, I feel like, is the icing on the cake for this. It's I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's one of the Pangea is one of the new instruments in Reason 10. On their own, something like this, like you could never use this. You know, it'll be hard to use this on its own in a track, but where creativity really starts with stuff like this is when you take it and throw it in a situation that it wasn't really intended to be in. So what this does here is that it, excuse me, it just gives it a percussive feel, and it just adds to the sort of clickiness of the whole thing. So if I just solo these first two, I mean, you can't really even hear it, but I just feel like it does something that lifts the entire synth. And the other thing about layering is, for example, if I wanted to make an entirely different track, I could just like randomly solo these two. Do something completely different. I mean, that's a new track on its own. And it's just using something I've already built, but changing enough to make it sound new and unique. So, yeah, every single one of these combinations, if I did these three, or if I did these two, or whatever, every single combination is a new synth on its own. And that's the nice thing about, getting into the habit of layering tracks. All right, and then EQ-wise, I just cut everything below 100 pretty much because you don't really need to hear that for this particular sound. The sound is really about what's going on in the mid and higher end of the frequency range, and so that's why I cut those out. Alright, I want to talk about the acoustic as well, because I think the person that commented asked specifically about the acoustic guitar. And the very boring answer that I have is it's a preset. And it's A-list acoustic guitarist, which is part of Reason's A-list set of instruments. I have, I think, all the guitar ones because I find them really useful because I can't play guitar, and these are just really useful in terms of just adding stuff that you're not able to do, basically, and it sounds super realistic. So all right, let me go here. Yeah, with all the like strumming and everything. So again, it's just a preset, and I think the trick for something like this is just keep in mind that these names were done intuitively, or well, they were done so that it's intuitive when you're trying to find something. So the way I approach this is, okay, this is a sort of funky, disco-ish sounding track, and so what are some? Is there something that's called funky, first of all, or funk, or is there something that's a synonym of that? And so I think if you think in terms of genres, for the feel, especially with something like this that's very rhythm based, for the feel that you're going for, it's easier to then start to narrow down your options. I mean, there are detailed tutorials about how this works on YouTube, and you can look them up. But the only thing that I changed was shimmer. So I think it comes off by default, and I just turned that up so that it sounds realistic. The other thing I should mention is doubling, which is one of my favorite features of this particular instrument. It just takes it from sounding like there's one person in the middle of your mix, or right in front of you, to two people sitting across from each other in front of you, and it just adds life to the track. And again, it's a preset. There's no extra processing on this apart from I just EQ'd again to remove all those frequencies that aren't really needed. So let me just A/B this. So this is what it sounds like without. And that's what it sounds like with. I didn't boost anything, and I mean, without the EQ, I feel like it would still work if there was a lot less going on in the track. But I just didn't want the acoustic to step on the toes of anything else that was happening in the frequency space. All right, and I'll talk about the bass as well, and that's also a preset. To disappoint you, I just think that presets are really powerful, and it's like people have spent hours and years in many cases like putting this stuff together, and then you pay $400 for it. And so there are times when you should just let them do the work for you, instead of like feeling like you have to create every sound from scratch. So I made this a couple months ago, so I likely changed or like tweaked a couple of things in here, but it's based on this preset called Surgery Bass Bass, and the only thing I did was to throw in this bass amp and just crank up the mid-range and the drive. So this is what it sounds like without. And that just gives it more meat. All right, and then I EQ'd to take out some of the really, really low frequencies, just so that the track isn't as boomy, and then boosted that a bit, and then cut off the highest frequencies. And there's a reverb. I think there's a reverb in the as a send effect. And just makes it a bit more interesting. And this effect is saturation, and I just added a little bit, just to bring it out a bit more. And the compressor is also, takes it from there and puts it there. So I got the idea for the rhythm of this song from a song called Lush Life by Zara Larsson. I'm not going to play it just so that YouTube doesn't give me a copyright strike or whatever, but you can look it up. It's called Lush Life. You'd notice that it sounds kind of similar, especially the bass, or the rhythmic structure of the bass, and even the beat, like the underlying what's going on drums wise, which I'll go into in a second. But I was listening to that at my desk on a Friday and thought, it'd be cool if I made a track that sounds like this. And that's sort of how this all came together. So let me talk about the drums real quick. It's just, again, it's all stuff that's already in Reason. So speaking again of layering, what I did for the snare was I added these two together. Let me just unlink them so you hear what they sound like separately. So this is sort of the main thing, and then this just gives it a bit more meat. And there are two ways to link something like that in Kong, just quickly. So one is if you select the pad, and then in this link section, just select one of these three. So these are both mapped to D. For example, if I wanted to add the snap, and if I just hit D, then you can see that all three are triggered when I play any one of them. Right, I just undid that. The other way is to flip the rack and then use the gates so that you want the one that you're triggering to go out and then into the one that you want triggered. But if you don't need more than three, then this link section is a great way to achieve the same thing. Right. Another interesting part that I got a question about in the comments was the vocal effects / line stuff. Nope. Nope. Where is it? There we go. So that it's somewhere in what I call the pre-chorus, but whatever. That stuff. Okay, so quickly again, combine the sounds right up front. Then I used, instead of using the smaller line mixer, I used the bigger one. It's just mind blowing to think that once upon a time this was the main mixer in Reason, and this is now it. And clearly the software has come a long way, but anyway, I use this just so that I can do some EQing down here, sort of pre everything else. And also there's a bunch of sound effects that I threw on there. But so there are three parts to this, I think. Three parts to this. The first is a sample of my own voice. And just to show you, if I can find where I save this. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So I made another track in which I recorded my voice. I'm not a vocalist, but I guess that just goes to show that you don't have to be a singer to record these types of samples to make synths. And I'd recorded myself singing. So this is just a preview. So that's me. And all I did was go into that track and cut out this particular, and just cut out like a snippet. Right? And threw it in NXT. And let me just solo this. There's that click because it's just basically the play mode is set so that it plays it once and then repeats, and so that's what that click is. And obviously I've thrown some reverb on that. That's why it sounds a lot more full than that. So that's the first part. It's just my own voice into NXT and a bunch of reverb. And yeah, even like if you record yourself with an iPhone in a quiet place, it could sound just as great. But obviously for more professional stuff, you'd want to get like a real condenser mic, or any other sort of recording mic. And then the second bit is another preset in Reason, this time on the master. It's called Wine. And again, I likely tinkered with stuff down here, but it's there we go. So this is basically like a very simple sine wave, but this oscillator called throat gives it a vocal quality, and that's how, So there's that, and the final thing is something else that's new in Reason 10, which is Humana. It's a bunch of sort of voice-based samples that sound really good if you're doing like any sort of orchestral stuff and you want like a choir type of sound. Um, and so on and so forth. And so that's what that is. And so, yeah, you combine all three together and throw a bunch of reverb on it, and that's what you end up with. All right. And then EQ wise, I just again cut out a lot of those low frequencies just so they're not crowding the low section because I really just wanted that bass um, instrument and line to shine through. And I think generally speaking, a lot of tutorials will tell you that anything below 40 hertz is typically not necessary for an instrument that doesn't need to be there because it just crowds up that section and makes your mix a lot less clean. All right. One last thing that I'll talk about is something else that I sort of used from the new features in Reason 10, which is clang. These are percussion-based instruments, and they're, you could call them ethnic or something, but yeah, on their own, again, it's the type of thing that you could use on its own, but it just if you throw in some delay, it just it's interesting for arpeggiated stuff. So what's going on here is simply if I solo that. If I slow that down, which is what I did to record it, because I didn't want to have to play that in one go. This is what you get. So yeah, and if you slow it down like that and quantize while you're recording, and then turn it back up, then you have very smooth chromatic descent. It's not chromatic technically, but you know what I mean. Yep, and then just copy paste is all I did. And just makes it more interesting. Yes, and then one more thing I did with clang was, if I can find it, I'm sure I can because it's right here. There we go. So it's another one of the presets, and what I did was run it through the echo effect and Reason, so it goes from that to that. And on this, I don't think I synced it. Oh, I did sync it to the time. Anyway, but yeah. So this I use just occasionally, because you've got the one that I just showed you in clang. In the main synth, you've got this sort of percussive, that percussive instrument that's part of the whole synth, and so this is just something else that complements those two. I felt like, and what I did with it was, whoops. Should I mute that? You're gonna hear it. Right, so there it is. So just like every couple of bars, just a single note. That's it. All right, so I hope this has been helpful in some way. Please feel free to leave any additional questions in the comments below. If there's anything you saw that you wish I had talked about in a bit more detail, I'm happy to answer those questions in the comments. But yeah, thanks for watching and for listening, and I'll continue to make stuff and upload. So if you like this, feel free to subscribe. And yeah.